Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Okay, when I predicted a slow week, I didn't really expect it to be this slow, and kind of strange the more you think about the few new arrivals that we actually did get. I'd say it's closer to a holding pattern than anything else, but considering how much of 2019 has felt like the holding pattern when it's come to releases, especially on the Hot 100, you gotta wonder if or when a major shakeup will truly hit. I mean, consider our top 10 for a second, where for another week, 7 Rings by Ariana Grande holds the number 1, but really, if you want to identify a major indicator of the stasis, it's that nobody has firmly given her much competition beyond a week or two at the top. And given that she's only really dominant in streaming in aggregate, and despite some real radio ascendancy, she's not on the top of the radio just yet. She's vulnerable. No, who's on top of the radio right now is Without Me by Halsey, up to number 2. Because even though sales and streaming are weaker overall, the margins are just good enough to hold pretty close. Now, that song did move past Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee, pushing it down to number 3. While the sales and streaming might be better, the radio's in free fall, and that does not appear to be changing. But it could well be replaced by Wow by Post Malone, up to number 4, thanks to good streaming and a major sales push. And while there are some inconsistencies on the radio that do give me pause, this might actually have finally enough traction to push through. Hell, it barreled right past Please Me by Cardi B and Bruno Mars down to number 5. And again, for as much as the radio is probably being told to push this, the sales and the streaming, they are suffering, which makes this seem like much more of an artificial label hit than having any actual organic groundswell. And while I'm on that topic, Somehow Happier by Marshmello and Bastille picked up another slot to number 6, because it had a good week on streaming and didn't lose that badly on the radio. Figures. And while I'm on that surprising topic, Shallow by Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper picked up to number 7 with big sales and what seems like a genuine radio second wind. I'll admit, I'm surprised that it's doing this well. Now, I'm not surprised at all that Sucker by the Jonas Brothers fell off to number 8. Yeah, the radio's very much on board and the sales are good, but those streaming numbers are not promising in the long term. Where in comparison with Middle Child by J. Cole down to number 9, where pretty much all it has is streaming, as the radio seems still pretty slow to get on board. Finally, cracking into the top 10 again, much to my surprise, we've got Going Bad by Meek Mill featuring Drake. And I'll admit I'm a little bit befuddled by this one. Yeah, it's always had more radio than you would remember, and the streaming has always been pretty good. I guess it's just filling in a vacuum on the radio, because I really don't think anybody cares that much about this song outside of Philly and New York. And while we're in this territory, let's go into our losers and dropouts, with the biggest being Wake Up in the Sky by Gucci Mane, Bruno Mars, and Kodak Black having sealed its spot on the year-end list. And I have to ask, did anybody really care about this song or like it at all? I mean, to me, there's just so little that's interesting or appealing about it. Really, a lot of the same observation I have for the other dropout with What Makes You Country from Luke Bryan. Oh, and When the Party's Over by Billie Eilish is also gone, but the second that album bomb hits, and given the pre-order numbers and some consistent streaming strength, I would put her in that territory. This'll be back in no time. Hell, when we go to our losers, I would say much of the same for the losses for Wish You Were Gay by Billie Eilish down to 87, but that one I might be actually okay with losing. Beyond that, I can't say our losers are all that surprising. My Bad by Khalid lost off the debut to 99, Girl by Maren Morris slipped off the return to 82, and I by Little Skies continues to plummet down to 71. But the real loser here looks to be Juice WRLD, where Hear Me Callin' fell down to 60, Empty dropped to 67, and Fast slowed down to 86. Again, I saw this coming, and if he was facing more competition this week, I predict all these would have been long gone, especially if said competition was good in streaming. But what even is that competition right now? Because I'm not seeing a lot of out of our gains and returning entries here. Sure, Walk Me Home by Pink came back to 89 on the strength of the video, and On My Way to You by Cody Johnson hit 95, Love Wins by Carrie Underwood is back at 100, and Let Me Down Slowly by Alec Benjamin and Alessia Cara is at 97. But the truth about all these songs is that there's a fragility to these returns. They've dipped on and off the Hot 100, and they don't seem all that stable. And if we're looking for the gains to fill the slots, I gotta be honest, there's not a lot of quality here either. Yes, the story this week is that Old Town Road by Lil Nas X has even more traction, up to 32, but it's a borderline joke song, and I don't really seeing it having a lot of shelf life. And that's not even touching on the songs that you can clearly see are here just to fill radio time. Who Do You Love by the Chainsmokers featuring 5 Seconds of Summer up at 54. I Can't Get Enough by Benny Blanco, Selena Gomez, J Balvin, and Taney. I've Been Waiting by Lil Peep, Isla McConan, and Fall Out Boy to 84, and Especially Bad Liar by Imagine Dragons at 59. Oh, and then there's Pure Cocaine by Lil Baby at 57, but I'm hoping the less I actually acknowledge that song, the faster it goes away. Really, the only two songs that spur any deeper thought from me at all are Act Up by City Girls at 50, and I'm really hoping it's not going to replace Twerk on the chart run, but we'll see, and Undrunk by Fletcher at 68, off the debut last week. I mean, the latter song isn't really all that good, but I'm curious how much traction a decent enough, if unrefined pop song picks up. We'll have to see. But you know, given how our list of new arrivals is really damn short right now, why don't we think about another pop song that's currently surging up the UK charts that also has got some rough edges and deserves a bit more attention. Hell, it was a similar segment that I first discovered this artist anyway, so why not go 2 for 2? So if all of you saw my review of Sigrid's debut album Sucker Punch, you will already know that I'm a big fan of what she's delivered recently, and I think I like this song even more than I liked Strangers. Granted, I'd probably still go for Sight of You, and Mine Right Now is the more obvious singles, mostly because both songs are a little bit better, a little catchier melodically for me, but this is still pretty great too, and I get why it was being pushed. More than ever, the big string section playing off the keys and the trap hi-hat, it's got the feel of a modern Jess Glynne song, just with some of the sheen replaced with bigger, rougher tones. And that kind of fits what this song kind of needs. Yeah, she should be doubling down on her angst and regret and processing her feelings in order to get over this breakup, but right now she doesn't feel like it, so much as just having fun and enjoying herself. A kind of an interesting pivot for a pop song, especially as she knows that the negative emotions aren't really going away and she's gonna have to deal with them. Just not yet, or not right now. So yeah, I really like this. Another damn good song from Sigrid. Can we ever cross over stateside at some point? I think her reckless abandon in that approach to pop music is exactly the shakeup that the current Hot 100 definitely needs. But you know what? I think there is still space for something else that probably should have been bigger last week and just missed the cut to break onto the Hot 100. Maybe an artist with a ton of real potential who I think deserves a real boost, even if the song might be on the cusp of charting sooner rather than later.
Big old freak, big booty, big old tree. I'ma make him wait for the pussy. Hit it in these big old ski. Ayy, feet on the bed. I fuck him up in the head.
So one thing that is an absolute net positive with Cardi B's success on the Hot 100 is how it's emboldened other women to muscle their way forward on the Hot 100 in hip-hop with a similar aggressive vibe and just as much lyricism as their male peers in trap, if not more. And while we've already seen some of this with City Girls already, the name that's been getting the most buzz recently is Meghan The Stallion, who through a combination of Instagram twerk videos and having a ton of real talent and presence off her album Tina Snow from last year, she's been making a name for herself. And you know what? It's kind of tough to pin down a direct label of what she's doing here that works so effectively. With this song, I'm reminded a little bit of Cupcake of all people with the unabashed sexuality, but where some of Cupcake's material could feel a little bit cartoonish and goofy despite the ruthless flows and content, Meghan The Stallion coaxes her trap grooves through an old New Jack Swing sample and a relaxed, utterly assured charisma that shows not only how much she's enjoying this, but how she is absolutely in control. I see the appeal. So yeah, I won't say this song is reinventing the wheel or anything when it comes to these sorts of sex jams, but if it gets Meghan The Stallion on board for people, yeah, worth talking about. Good song. But now on to our very scant list of new arrivals, starting off with number 96, Slow Dancing in the Dark by Joji. Don't follow me, you'll end up in my arms. You know, if you had told me 6 or 7 years ago that we get a song from George Miller, aka Joji, aka Pink Guy, aka Filthy Frank on the Hot 100, look, I actually probably wouldn't have been that surprised, given that his was the biggest video that made the Harlem Shake a thing in 2013. But I wouldn't have expected it to turn out like this. And I'll be honest, from what I have heard from Joji before this song, I've not really been all that impressed. The sort of lo-fi, emotive, but generally kind of underwhelming pop R&B, it's a pretty saturated scene right now, and I wasn't hearing what really stood out from him. And with this song propelled most by TikTok memes to where it currently is, well, it's not bad, but I'd struggle to call it great or transcendent either. I certainly hear the Khalid comparison in his vocal delivery, but from a compositional standpoint and songwriting, Joji's more of a maximalist. Garish buzzing keyboards and watery progressions that are just ramshackle enough to feel human, and content that splits the difference between wanting his ex back to reclaim some sort of romance and the reflexive, self-defeating realization he will never be good enough for her. And while I certainly hear the appeal of this sort of song, I don't know. I do wish there was a little bit more development here with a bridge or production that went a little bit harder or bigger. Tried for a bit more dynamics, but you know what? I still see the appeal. It's good stuff. I'll take it. Number 62, Sally Walker by Iggy Azalea.
What to do, so she jumped in front of me. Little Sally Walker walking down the street. She didn't know what to do, so she jumped in front of me.
Okay, as I said, it's a net positive that Cardi B is emboldening the market to give women in hip-hop the space to see some airplay, and the reason why it's not a gross positive is because Iggy Azalea is nabbing a spot here too. And let's not mince words, this is a blatant, obvious copycat of Cardi B's Money, which I've long held as Cardi B's worst hit. And yet, if I'm being honest, while I don't like either song here, I might actually prefer at least the production from Sally Walker, which feels better balanced across his keyboard and bass beat and has a little bit more groove as a whole. But then you got Iggy Azalea relying on the damn nursery rhyme cadence and content that somehow lacks a lot, even in comparison with the underwhelming detail that Cardi had. I mean, I've defended Iggy Azalea's rapping before, but her not trying is giving me even less reason to care about her. So yeah, even if the production might connect a little bit better, we've got enough women making better music that we don't need Iggy Azalea. Frankly, I'm surprised she's still here. Let's move on. And finally, number 55, Numb Numb Juice by Schoolboy Q. So look, we've all been waiting for a new Schoolboy Q album. His name and presence in the industry has been steadily growing throughout the 2010s. He's on the cusp of that mainstream crossover. Hell, I've long thought he's deserved it before now. And when the internet seemed to get behind the song, I was excited. And after a few listens, I was left wondering where the hell the rest of it even is. Look, Schoolboy Q has always had a ton of visceral personality, and would be enough to sound convincing even on a pretty basic flexing and killing song, which is exactly what this is. And with the dark piano chords and the grimy rumble, the beat opposite the loud trap snares, I totally see why people would find this effective. But I can't be the only one who thinks that Schoolboy Q can do a little bit more than this. It feels more like an interlude than anything else, a fragment of a song that gives us really kind of nothing and doesn't really flatter the innate grasp of groove that's made Schoolboy Q so compelling on earlier albums. So yeah, it might go pretty hard, but given how long he's been gone, I do consider this a bit of a disappointment. I know Schoolboy can deliver more here, and this is more like a teaser that doesn't really satisfy. Sure as hell hope it doesn't foretell what's coming on the album, but alright, we'll have to see. Anyway, that was a pretty short week. Yeah, best and worst, they followed easily, with Joji of all people getting the best for Slow Dancing in the Dark, and Iggy Azalea getting worse for Sally Walker, because duh. Next week, well, apparently some people are trying to make this Numb album a thing, and Logic apparently dropped an alt-rock soundtrack thing from out of nowhere that people are saying is really terrible, so we all have that to anticipate. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.